Discover how a hidden Korean boy's life-changing journey led to the incredible rise of Hyundai. Jean watched the sun dip low behind the industrial skyline, casting shadows over the small Midwestern town he called home. Trains rumbled in the distance, filling the air with a familiar echo, like the resounding heartbeat of their community. The smell of fresh laundry hung thick, a comforting scent that swirled around the modest laundromat where his family poured their hearts every day. They lived and worked in a place where dreams felt fragile, yet Jean felt a fire within, ignited by his parents' sacrifices. They worked endlessly, hoping to grasp the American dream, a hope his mother cherished fiercely. Yet, as he walked the crowded halls of high school, everyday pressures pressed down on him harder than the laundry baskets he lifted. Stares pierced him, whispers trailed behind him, marking Jean as different an outsider. At 15, navigating adolescence was already a challenge, but the weight of social prejudice clung to him like a heavy coat. Friends drifted, leaving behind echoes of laughter that transformed into shadows of despair, especially as the local car factory shuttered its doors, leaving devastation in its wake. With each passing day, Jean felt the burden grow heavier on his shoulders. The worry lines grew deeper on his parents' faces as they continued to strive for a better life while their neighbors spiraled into uncertainty. He wanted to lift them, to show them their sacrifices weren't in vain. But how could he? Torn between his commitment to family and his own ambition, he struggled to balance high school and the endless responsibilities at the laundromat. Then one day, he stumbled upon a flyer for a national automotive design competition. His heart raced with exhilaration. This wasn't just a contest. It was a chance to revive his town and honor his family's dream. Initially, he felt an overwhelming surge of determination. Could he channel all of his frustrations into creating something extraordinary? It was time to step up. The echoes of resilience he learned from his parents pushed him forward as he dove into late nights, sketching designs fueled by hope. But the road was rocky. Inadequate tools, sketching in dim light, it felt like climbing an endless mountain with no summit in sight. Then came the moment that threatened to crush his spirit. A vital piece of his project broke apart, leaving him devastated. Tears threatened as he slumped against the wall of the laundromat. His dreams felt impossibly shattered. Did he truly have what it takes to lead his family or his town? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he reeled from despair, a moment of clarity washed over him. This was more than just a competition. It was about igniting hope, rallying his community. Could he unite those who once doubted him? With the contest deadline looming, he stood at a crossroads. Could he transform his pain into a rallying cry? How could he light a spark not just for himself, but for everyone who shared in his family's journey? As he gazed out at a town that seemed lost, Jean felt a stirring deep inside. A single hint about the competition flashed before him, a pivotal clue that could change everything. What would he do with it? The choice was his, and with it came the weight of the future. Jean sat on the floor of the laundromat, his sketches sprawled out before him like pieces of a lost puzzle. The dim light cast shadows on his drawings, highlighting every curve and line that held his dreams. He could still feel the sting of disappointment from earlier. That broken piece hadn't just shattered his design, it felt like it had crushed his resolve too. Yet, as the sounds of the bustling laundromat filled the air, something began to shift within him. He took a deep breath, and with it came a rush of clarity. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about everyone who had ever felt lost in this town, those who had held on to the fading hopes left behind by the factory closures. Jean pushed himself off the floor, brushing off the dust clinging to his jeans. He had a mission. The designs were not just sketches. They were symbols of a new beginning for his community. That evening, as the lights flickered on in their small laundromat, Jean began reaching out. With every call he made, Every conversation he initiated, he felt the walls of isolation start to crumble. He spoke of his vision for the design competition, inviting support and rallying the spirits of those who felt defeated. When he mentioned the possibility of turning the laundromat into a community hub for brainstorming sessions, his parents looked at him with a mix of pride and confusion. "Do you really think people will come?" his father asked, worry etched on his face. "Yes," Gene replied, determination pulsing in his veins. "If we work together, we can create something amazing. It's time for all of us to dream again." Within days, word spread. On Saturday evenings, the laundromat transformed. Long tables filled with markers and papers replaced laundry baskets, and the warm scent of coffee mingled with the smell of fabric softener. Neighbors dropped by, hesitant at first, but curiosity turned into excitement. They shared ideas, hopes, and laughter. The room buzzed with a shared energy, a collective desire to rise from the ashes of their past. A massive whiteboard now stood in the corner, covered with plans. Gene watched as kids sketched their wildest dreams, while adults shared their experiences of loss and resilience. The camaraderie was palpable, inspiring Gene further as he molded their ideas into coherent designs. Each session pulled him deeper into a world of creativity and innovation. Where once he felt alone, he now felt like a leader. But deep down, fears lurked. Would his designs be enough? Would the judges appreciate the heart of his community embedded within them? As the deadline loomed closer, the weight of expectation pressed on him, but he also felt the warmth of hope surrounding him. In the glow of the laundromat's fluorescent lights, he began to see a path forward, forged by the unity he had managed to cultivate. With just days remaining before he had to submit his work, Gene faced another pivotal moment. A piece of advice from one of his mentors echoed in his mind. Do not be afraid to take risks. Behind every great invention lies the heart and courage to push boundaries. Fueled by this reminder, Gene knew what he had to do. He pulled out his supplies one last time, his heart racing with anticipation. A surge of creativity rushed through him, stronger than ever. But just as he began mapping out his boldest idea yet, he overheard two older neighbors discussing doubts. "Can a kid really change this place?" one whispered. Gene paused, the words cutting through the air. Were they right? Was he just a dreamer? Or could he truly spark something larger than himself? With that lingering question in mind, Gene felt the pulse of his community behind him. A newfound spark ignited within. Yet deep down, he wondered, was this spark enough to light the fire of change? As the competition deadline approached, what would he risk to make it happen? Gene stared at his sketches, the blank page beneath his pencil taunting him. The loud chatter of the laundromat was a soundtrack to his thoughts, the busy whir of washing machines, the clatter of coins, and the smell of freshly laundered clothes. But it wasn't enough to drown out the doubts creeping in. Could he really make a difference? He pulled his gaze away and looked around. The familiar faces of neighbors filled the space, their laughter mingling with the aroma of coffee. But beneath the surface, he sensed their uncertainty. He could see it in their eyes, hear it in their whispers. And yet, here they were, choosing to take a chance, choosing to share in his vision. It fueled him, ignited a fire that warmed his resolve. That evening brought more than just plans and sketches. It brought a sense of urgency. Gene gathered everyone around the newly formed community hub. "Let us brainstorm," he called, his voice steady despite the tremor of his heart. "Let us dare to dream together." A wave of excitement washed over the group. The noise grew, ideas bouncing from one person to another, evolving and transforming before his eyes. But there were still those who lingered at the edges, uncertain. Gene approached Mrs. Lee, her brow furrowed in thought. "What's on your mind?" he asked. "Oh, Gene, it's just what if we fail? What if this is all just wishful thinking?" Her voice carried the weight of years burdened by missed chances. Gene felt the knot in his stomach tighten. "What if we don't try?" he replied, trying to keep his voice light. "If we keep holding back, we'll never know what we can become." Mrs. Lee looked thoughtful, slowly nodding. Gene returned to the group, allowing optimism to wash over his previous worries. They could create something beautiful, he felt it in his bones. The energy shifted. The atmosphere grew thicker with shared hopes. Days slipped by. The deadline loomed like a storm cloud, dark but not yet unleashed. Each night, more faces filled the laundromat, all contributing their talents. A local artist brought paint. Another neighbor brought fabric and sewing supplies. They didn't just work. They transformed the space into a living gallery of their pooled dreams. Collaboration thrived like a garden springing to life. But as they worked together, doubts erupted within Jean. He was the one who had started this. Was he ready to be the leader they needed? And then there were the sketches, countless versions, bits of himself peppering every page. What if his design didn't reflect their essence? What if it fell flat? Those questions gnawed at him, wavering like shaky hands with a paintbrush. But he had promised himself no more second-guessing. With a deep breath, he leaned into the community beside him. They were stronger together, and this was their project just as much as it was his. As the night before the submission dawned, Jean stayed late to finalize his designs. Overhead, flickering lights cast soft shadows, the only witness to his short breaths and fast strokes. He poured heart and soul into the work. It felt wild, chaotic, and beautiful. Just as he put down the final stroke, a knock echoed through the laundromat's stillness. Startled, he turned to see Mrs. Lee standing in the doorway, a smile illuminating her face. "We're all waiting, Jean," she said softly. "It's time." His heart raced. Could he truly show them what he had created? Standing up, he glanced at the sketches one last time, the fear of failure still lurking but overshadowed by determination. It was their moment, their chance. Jean took a deep breath and stepped forward at that moment. Uncertainty mingled with hope. Now was the time for action, the time to reveal the truth behind his designs. But would the world outside his small laundromat be ready for the changes they were about to propose? As Jean stepped out from behind the sketches, the murmurs of the gathered community swept over him like a warm embrace. Faces shone with eager anticipation, their eyes reflecting the flickering light of possibilities. He could feel the pulse of excitement in the air, the bond forged through late nights and shared dreams. "Everyone, this is it," he began, his voice steady but quickening. "This project isn't just about designs. It's about us, our stories, our community. We've poured our hearts into this." He gestured to the sketches but knew the importance lay deeper than paper. He started to unveil the designs, revealing their colors a vibrant palette that spoke of hope and unity. Each stroke bore the weight of collaboration. Every line represented a voice. Murmurs of admiration rippled through the crowd as they inched closer, curiosity sparking excitement. A young woman stepped forward. "It reflects who we are, Jean." Her eyes were wide, her passion contagious. Jean felt momentum building, the doubts that had haunted him receding like a fading echo. Suddenly, Mr. Thompson, the gruff, older neighbor known for his stern demeanor, broke the barrier of silence. "I don't usually care for art," he grumbled, but his voice was softer now, more vulnerable. "But this feels different." He pointed to one sketch, depicting a lively gathering space, bright with laughter and connection. "It looks like home." Jean smiled, warmth washing over him. "That's exactly what it's meant to be. A home for all of us." They began discussing details, colors that evoked memories of childhood, patterns that carried traditions. Every contribution deepened the designs, transforming them into a tapestry of their shared experiences. With each exchange, Jean's confidence grew. The fear of inadequacy shrank into the background like the fading daylight. But then, a darker thought flickered to life in his mind. What if their idea was too ambitious? What if they faced rejection despite their hard work? He watched as the excitement swelled among the people around him, the laughter growing louder. What if we really believe we can do this? Before he could voice his worries, Mrs. Lee grasped his arm gently, her eyes locked onto his. "Sometimes believing is the hardest part, Jean. But if we truly believe, we can make this happen." Her voice was steady, imbuing him with her unwavering faith. Just then, the doors swished open, and a fresh gust of air breezed in, bringing with it the scent of night. Jean turned to see newcomers walking in. A local newspaper reporter carrying a camera and a couple of curious bystanders. Word had spread. Heart racing, he felt the atmosphere shift yet again. New possibilities were at their doorstep. "Is this your project?" the reporter asked, eyes scanning the vibrant showcase of sketches and mock-ups. "Yes. Yes, it is," Jean replied. "We want to create a space for our community. A space where we can celebrate who we are." The reporter raised a brow, intrigued. "Would you allow me to cover this story?" Beneath his nervousness, a spark ignited within Jean. Suddenly, it didn't just feel like a local project. This could reach far and wide. He could hear the voice of the community grow stronger and brighter beyond his small world. A collective gasp of excitement erupted from those gathered. They had each played a part, and now their voices could resonate beyond the walls of the laundromat. As the conversation flowed and ideas expanded, Jean grasped the magnitude of what lay ahead. But amid the celebration, a flicker of uncertainty loomed. What if they couldn't sustain this excitement? What if the world outside rejected everything they had worked for? Jean took a deep breath, feeling the swell of hope in his chest. "Let us embrace this moment, everyone. This is just the beginning." With a determined gaze, he glanced toward the growing group and felt a wave of unity swell within him. Standing there among them, he recognized they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together. As the night deepened, Jean could sense a shift in the atmosphere, a shared understanding that this journey was just beginning. But as he took another look at the faces surrounding him, an unsettled question lingered in his heart. What if the outside world wasn't ready for the change they were so desperately trying to create? Jean felt the excitement in the air shift like a breeze through an open window. The reporters and onlookers were buzzing, their voices overlapping, creating a cacophony of hope and nerves. Was this really happening? Just hours ago, he'd been afraid the spark of their project might flicker out. Now, it burned brighter than ever. As the reporter began snapping pictures, Jean made his way to a small group gathered around a sketch of a community garden. The vibrant images seemed to pulse with life, flowers in bloom, children laughing, neighbors sharing stories over benches. It wasn't just a design. It was a dream taking shape. Each person leaned in, tracing the lines with their fingers, as if part of the magic was transferred through touch. "We need a place to grow together," one of the women said, her voice trembling with emotion. "This will not just be a garden. It will be our roots." Encouraged, Jean nodded. "Exactly. A reminder of where we come from and where we're going. But we need to make sure our voices create these spaces." "It's about collaboration." Another man chimed in, eyes bright. "What if we hold workshops? Teach each other our skills? That will draw more people in." As ideas flowed, Jean felt something shift inside him. Passion replaced uncertainty. He saw not just the designs, but a vision for community empowerment. The fear of rejection dimmed in the midst of shared laughter and vibrant dreams. But as they planned, a shadow danced in the back of his mind. That nagging question he tried to suppress returned, creeping back like a dark cloud. What if the world outside didn't understand what they were building? What if their dreams were too big for their small community to handle? A gentle hand rested on Jean's shoulder. It was Mrs. Lee again. "You think too much," she said softly, "but that's why we trust you. Just take it one step at a time." Jean offered a faint smile, reminded of her wisdom. "Maybe you're right," he said, drawing a shaky breath. The reporter approached, watching the group with keen interest. "This is inspiring. I can already see a headline forming, a community's journey towards unity through art and culture." Jin's heart raced. He could feel the weight of what they were doing. It felt monumental. "We don't want to be just a story," he insisted, meeting the reporter's gaze. "We want to create change, a real impact. The story isn't just about us, it's about everyone." The reporter nodded, impressed. "I think that's exactly the angle people will want to hear about. This could become part of a much larger narrative." Jean locked eyes with the people around him. The warmth from their support was palpable, yet doubt still haunted the edges of his mind. What if the community fell short? What if after all their hard work, no one else cared? As night deepened, they gathered closer, preparing for their first community meeting in the park, the first step towards bringing their project to life. People exchanged writings, sketches, and words of encouragement, creating a tapestry of hope. But even as they shared plans, Jean felt the rush of reality settling in. This was just the beginning. He was stepping onto a path lined with uncertainty and challenges. The excitement was overwhelming yet exhilarating, like standing on the edge of a cliff ready to dive. Are we really ready for this? He thought, scanning the faces lit by the soft glow of street lamps. As he glanced at the designs once more, a wave of determination washed over him. We will be ready, he whispered to himself, clutching the sketches tightly. But just as he was about to speak again, a sudden crash echoed from outside, interrupting the moment. The doors slammed open unexpectedly, drawing everyone's attention. What is happening now? Fear and curiosity tangled in Jean's chest. He took a step forward, heart pounding. Who, or what had just burst through the door? What impact would it have on the dreams they were trying to build? Jin's heartbeat quickened as the door swung wide, revealing a breathless figure silhouetted in the dim light. It was a girl, her dark hair tangled and eyes wide with urgency. She stumbled into the room, tapping into the collective surprise of the gathering. Help, please. Her voice sliced through the air, urgent and raw. She glanced behind her, panic etched on her face as if something or someone was following her. The group froze, a heavy silence settling in as Jean stepped closer. What's going on? Are you okay? His instinct kicked in. He had to know what was happening. The girl took a breath, her voice shaky but determined. They're coming for him. We have to hide. What do you mean? Who? A murmur rippled through the crowd, faces filled with concern and confusion. I can't explain everything right now, she said, glancing over her shoulder again, the fear palpable on her face. But please, you have to trust me. They'll hurt him. We need to protect him. Jean felt a surge of responsibility swell within him. These were his people, his friends. They needed to know what was going on, how to navigate through this unexpected storm. We can help. Just tell us what to do, he urged, searching her wide eyes for understanding. She locked onto his gaze, searching for assurance, and for a moment time seemed to pause. He.S. hiding in the alley behind the old bakery. Please, we have to move. A moment of indecision washed over the room. Would they risk their safety for a stranger? But then, just as quickly, the warmth of community spirit ignited. Voices murmured agreement, the tension slowly melting into action. Jean grabbed a jacket off the back of a chair and turned to Mrs. Lee, who looked like she was about to protest but found only resolve in his eyes. We're going. Together. The energy shifted from fear to purpose as the crowd moved toward the door. There was a sense of solidarity igniting within each of them as they rushed outside into the chill of the night. The streets felt alive with urgency. Shadows flickered in the streetlights as Jean led the small group toward the alley behind the bakery. Each step echoed the knowledge that they were about to face uncertainty head-on. What do you know about this boy? One of the men asked, trying to keep up with Jin's quickened pace. Not much. Just that he's in trouble, the girl said breathlessly. He's been separated from his family, and they've been looking for him. It's dangerous. Images of bold dashes through alleys and whispered secrets filled Gina's thoughts. This was not just about their community garden anymore. It felt bigger, like a tapestry woven with strands of survival and compassion. They reached the alley, and Jean couldn't help but glance around, caution overtaking excitement. What do we do now? Just wait, she answered, holding her breath, eyes darting down the street. Moments ticked by, and fear clawed at the edges of Jin's heart. As if sensing their tension, a small figure appeared from the shadows, a boy, no older than 10, trembling and wide-eyed. Relief rushed through the girl, but Gina's heart sank as he caught a glimpse of something behind the boy, dimly lit by the streetlight. A shadow loomed closer, prowling, and Jean felt dread settle in the pit of his stomach. Get behind us, Jean shouted as the group instinctively moved in closer, forming a protective barrier around the boy. It was a simple act, yet in that moment it felt monumental. Just when Jean believed they were ready to stand their ground, a voice cut through the night, a harsh shout that seemed to belong to the approaching shadow. "Stop right there." The tension snapped taut, threatening to break. Jean's heart raced as he faced the unknown. What were they about to confront? Would they manage to protect this boy and continue their fight for their community dreams? Everything hinged on this next moment, the fear of failure clawing at his thoughts. "Stay strong," Jean whispered under his breath, fighting back his own deep-seated doubts. But would it be enough? The figure stepped into the light, revealing a tall man dressed in a dark coat, eyes cold as steel. He looked around, scanning the crowd with an unsettling confidence. Jean felt his breath hitch, awareness brimming over as he sensed the danger closing in. "Where is he?" the man demanded, voice laced with authority. "I know he is here." The group exchanged anxious glances. The girl took a step forward, trembling but defiant. "You'll have to go through us first." Her boldness stirred something in Jean. He felt fire ignite in his gut. They had come together in this moment, united against a common threat. But even so, he was aware of how vulnerable they all were. "Stay together," he urged quietly to the group, taking an instinctive step forward to match the girl's stance. The boy, who had been silent, stepped quietly out from behind the protective line formed by the others. He looked small and fragile, vulnerability pouring off of him. Jean's heart raced as he realized the boy was ready to confront this danger on his own. "Wait," the boy said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I'm here. You don't have to hurt them." Jean felt his skin prickle. The boy was risking everything. Could he really be that brave? The man turned sharply, eyes narrowing. "So there you are." His tone darkened, dripping with menace. "You think they can protect you? You're wrong. You need to come with me." "No." The girl's voice rang out, fierce and frantic. "You don't understand. They care about you." At that moment, crying out his name felt essential. "Daniel, please come back," Jean said, unsure if the boy recognized him, but desperate enough to try. It felt like a cascade of connection, strength swelling in the air among them. They wouldn't let this boy slip away. "Not again." The man laughed sharply, a sound devoid of warmth. "You think this is some kind of game?" "No," the boy said, shaking his head. "You're wrong. They're my friends." Even as he said it, there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Jean could sense the boy fought an internal battle, torn between fear and the flickering light of loyalty. "See?" the man sneered. "He doesn't even know who to trust." Jean felt an icy grip around his heart. Was this true? Could Daniel really doubt them, after everything they had done to help him? The girl stepped closer, her voice trembling but adamant. "I won't let you take him." Jean took her hand, squeezing it for support. The warmth felt like a lifeline in the storm of uncertainty. "We're not letting him go. Not now," he vowed, summoning resolve he didn't know he had. "Back away," the man warned, hands moving toward the inner pockets of his coat. Panic shot through the group. Jean shifted slightly, wide eyes darting around. Would he fight? Would he run? And what about Daniel? Together, he whispered, knowing they had to act as one against this threat. Suddenly, Daniel took a deep breath, stepping forward to stand beside the girl. "You can't take me." His voice rang out, steady and courageous, cutting through the darkness like a beacon. The man faltered, shock etching his features. For the briefest moment, something shifted in the air, a pregnant pause before the storm. An unexpected wave of determination surged through Jean, a force that demanded action. As Jean prepared to stand tall with Daniel, he caught the glint of something metallic flash in the man's hand. Time seemed to freeze. What was it? And how could they face the threat rushing toward them? With hearts pounding louder than the ticking clock, Jean felt the world tilt. The next moments would decide everything. The tension in the air grew thicker, an almost tangible thing pressing down on them. Jean's heart raced, his breath shallow. The man's gaze was icy, unyielding. He looked capable of anything. "Daniel, stay with us," Jean shouted with urgency, as if his words could lock the boy into place. It stole his breath to think that Daniel might feel torn. He couldn't let Daniel slip away. Not now. Let them go, the girl insisted, her voice stronger now, but fear crept through her defiance. You're outnumbered. We won back down. The man's mouth twisted into a smirk. You think this is some kind of game? You think you're heroes? He paused, letting the intensity boil just above the surface. You're playing with fire. With an abrupt movement, he pulled a gleaming object from his coat, a sleek, silver blade that glittered menacingly in the dim light. Gasps erupted from the group. Jean felt the air escape his lungs, drowning in horror. Daniel, the girl breathed, squeezing Jean's hand. Get behind us. Jean moved swiftly, positioning himself protectively, his body a shield between Daniel and the dark threat. He's just trying to scare us, Jean said, forcing confidence into his voice. We won let fear win. Daniel's wide eyes reflected a mix of fear and bravery. Jean could almost see the wheels turning in his head. Would he step back, or step forward? Enough of this, the man said coldly, advancing toward them. This isn't a negotiation. Then, without warning, the girl lunged forward, breaking the tension like a taut string. Go, Daniel. Now. With that commanding shout, Jean saw the flicker of instinct kick in. Daniel hesitated, searching the group, weighing his options. The blade glinted dangerously, and the heat of urgency settled onto Jean's shoulders. We're right here, he said, voice steady despite the chaos. Daniel's eyes locked onto Jean's, searching for something, a hint of reassurance perhaps. In that brief moment, Jean felt a jolt, a connection that transcended words. Daniel didn't just see the threat. He saw friendship, loyalty, love in the eyes of his friends. Suddenly, Daniel took a step back, his voice rising with conviction. You can't take me. I choose them. The words rolled off his tongue like thunder. A thunder that shattered the intimidation the man wielded. The man's eyes widened, his composure faltering just for a split second. You'll regret this, he spat, voice dripping with venom. Stop. You don't have to do this. Jean cried, his heart in his throat. Time stood still as the world narrowed to the confrontation unfolding before them, the desperate need to protect Daniel overshadowing any fear within Jean. The silence was deafening, only broken by the distant sound of anxiety rippling through the crowd. People murmured and shifted uneasily, their eyes glued to the escalating drama. There was a weight in the air, a collective breath held, waiting for something to snap. Then, at the edge of Jean's vision, something shifted. A jolt of recognition crashed over him as he realized. They had to fight, not just against the man, but to protect everything they had built together. They were stronger united. On three, Jean shouted, voice rising above the din together. Right? Something flickered in Daniel's eyes, a spark igniting. Jean saw the hesitation fall away as he and the girl exchanged glances, a silent understanding passing between them. 1, 2, 3. In that moment, they surged forward, hearts pounding in a desperate race against the unknown. Jean pushed past his fears, feeling the strength of his friends at his back. Would they manage to break free from the grips of danger? Or would the darkness pulling at Daniel become too strong? As emotions surged and adrenaline took over, they launched themselves into the storm, prepared to face whatever awaited them. But uncertainty loomed large, as shadows twisted around them, hungry for a chance to conquer the light. What would happen next? Would it spark transformation or chaos? The world around them dissolved into a blur of movement and sound. Jin's pulse thundered in his ears as they collided with the man, adrenaline surging through his veins like fire. It was a desperate scramble, each of them instinctively fighting for each other, pushing back against the dark figure dominating their lives in that moment. The girl's strength matched the fury of her heart. She charged forward, arms swinging, adrenaline making her bold. Jean caught a flash of her determination as she struck the man's arm, forcing him to stumble back. But the blade glinted as he steadied himself, and it caught the light just long enough for fear to creep back into Jin's resolve. Daniel, keep moving, Jean shouted, urging the boy forward, knowing there was no retreat now. The air crackled with energy and tension as Daniel broke free, darting past the melee, his small frame weaving through the chaos. Jin's heart ached as he witnessed that fleeting moment of courage. Daniel was embodying everything they had fought for. But then the man, enraged and wild, swung the blade in a wide arc, and in an instant time slowed. The crowd gasped. A collective inhalation of disbelief echoed through the onlookers as they watched the deadly glint soar through the air aimed right at Daniel. No! Jin's voice burst forth, raw and primal. He lunged, fueled by every bit of emotion pouring forth from his heart. Daniel's wide eyes caught the flash of the blade. The understanding of their shared plight cutting deeper than any weapon could. Jin's body collided with Daniel just in time. They fell to the ground, a flurry of limbs and panic. The blade whistled past them, missing by mere inches, embedding itself into the ground a short distance away. The onlookers drew breath as one, panic rippling through the crowd. They lay there, breathless, hearts thumping violently against their chests, desperately clinging to one another, and for once, the world around them faded. Nothing mattered but their overwhelming relief, bonded by despair and love. The fight, the chaos, it could wait. Are you okay? Jin whispered, his eyes scanning Daniel's face for any sign of injury. As Daniel lifted his gaze, Jin saw it fear mingled with admiration. It was a look that said, "I trust you." "Let us get up," Daniel replied, voice shaking but determined. Rising together, unexpected strength coursed through them. The girl stood beside them, fierce and unyielding, her eyes narrowing on the man, who was momentarily shaken by their miraculous recovery. "This isn't over," he shouted, panicking as his authority slipped away. "You'll pay for this." Jin inhaled sharply, trying to block out the tension, the heat of danger swallowing them whole. "We're not afraid of you anymore," he declared, gathering every ounce of strength. The fear that had weighed down on him until now transformed into pure defiance. The man scoffed, eyes darkening, but each frantic breath from Jin and the girl, the bravery flickering in Daniel's eyes, they had created an invisible shield around them, fueled by an unwavering belief that they could face anything together. But then, like a thunderclap, the man lunged at them again, this time with newfound rage. And with each passing moment, Jin could feel the storm building, each blow exchanged becoming more desperate, more urgent. A wild idea sparked in Jin's mind. "Follow my lead," he shouted, turning to his friends. They exchanged quick glances, an understanding igniting silently. As they drew together, forming a united front, Jin felt the adrenaline rising once again. It was a risk, a gamble that could change everything. The intensity of what was to come dwarfed anything they had faced until now. Would their bond hold through the chaos? Would their combined strength match the darkness threatening to engulf them? As they braced for the next strike, Jin swallowed hard, uncertainty swirling in his chest. This was a fight for more than survival. It was a stand against fear. What would happen when the dust settled? Would they rise together, or would this moment tear them apart? Jin could feel the energy around him crackle like a live wire. The man lunged once more, his rage evident in every movement. But Jin was ready. He pushed forward with determination, rallying his friends by his side. "Stay together. Focus," he shouted, forcing the words out over the panic swirling in his chest. The girl swung out, delivering a clip to the man's side, creating just enough distraction. Jin seized the moment. He stepped closer, feeling the weight of Daniel behind him, innocent and brave. With one swift motion, Jin grabbed the man's wrist, stunning him momentarily. The blade clattered to the ground, the sound echoing as loudly as Jin's racing heart. "Now," he called out, his voice firm. The group surged forward, channeling their fear into determination. They pushed back, forcing the man to stumble. It was a flurry of arms and adrenaline, each friend pulling from the shared strength they had built over countless late nights and hopeful dreams. In that moment, something shifted. The man, once so imposing, now stood vulnerable among their combined force. A tremor ran through his body, the resolve fading from his eyes as he faced not just Jin, but the whole community. "You're nothing," he yelled, but his voice shook, dripping with uncertainty as if he sensed the tide turning against him. Jean felt a rush of emotion, pride blossoming in his chest as he exchanged looks with Daniel and the girl. Their bond had transformed them, not just into fighters, but into a family forged through love and resilience. The whisper of doubt that had once loomed over Jean was now a faint echo, replaced by certainty. No, Jean said calmly, we're everything. We're family, and we choose to protect each other. The man's bravado crumbled as he searched for an escape, realizing the unity surrounding him was too strong. He stumbled back, hesitating, the fire in his eyes flickering. The voices of the community swelled behind Jean, carrying a powerful message. Leave him alone, they shouted, the rhythmic chant growing louder, vibrating through the air around them. A surge of triumph filled Jean. They had transformed fear into strength, and together they were unstoppable. The man, cornered and faced with an unstoppable wave of unity, took a step back, then turned and fled into the shadows as the dust settled around them. An exhilarating calm washed over the group. Jean, still breathless, locked eyes with Daniel, who looked both astonished and relieved. The boy's eyes shined with gratitude. You saved me, he whispered, the words heavy with meaning. No, we saved each other. Jean looked around, taking in the faces of the friends and neighbors who had stood by him. What had started as a journey to revive a dream had transformed into something even more powerful, a community and a family reborn. Mrs. Lee stepped forward, wiping the relief from her eyes. It isn't just about bravery. It's about standing together, believing in each other. A chorus of murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. They had faced darkness, and together, they had forged light. Days turned into weeks. The community meetings morphed into vibrant events, breathing life into their long-dormant spirits. The design competition was just the beginning. Their unity became a catalyst for more than just dreams. It rebirthed hope across their town. Jean's designs for the community garden evolved, and their spaces transformed into places of gathering. Laughter echoed where silence once lingered. Looking back, Jean could hardly recognize the boy who once felt alone. He had changed in more ways than he could count. And as the sun dipped low in the sky, bathing the community garden in gold, he knew this was only the beginning. Here, surrounded by friends, in a space filled with colors, sounds, and the promise of tomorrow, Jean let the moment sink in. Family wasn't just defined by blood but by bonds formed in the fires of challenge. His heart swelled, knowing they were an undeniable force. Let us keep dreaming, Jean called out, raising his hands in triumph, and the crowd erupted in cheers, every voice echoing in solidarity. From that moment, as laughter filled the air, he realized they had not only rekindled hope, they had ignited a flame that would never extinguish. Never forget the power of unity. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this message of hope. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support is what keeps this community strong.